What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about Slumber Party Massacre from 2021. I got the DVD right here. It's slipping and sliding. I just picked this up on eBay. Got a little slip cover action. It's the same thing, you know, nothing crazy. But yeah, I just picked this up. I've already reviewed all the other Slumber Party Massacre movies, and I'm a fan of them. Mainly like the first two. The third one was just whatever. But anyways, I was like never even really interested in seeing the remake for the longest time. I thought it might be too heavy-handed with the social commentary. A lot of movies nowadays are a little bit in your face with the social commentary, which I personally am not a big fan of. Movies have always had social commentary, but I'm personally more of a fan of subtle social commentary. I don't like when it's like just completely in your face. It kind of I don't know, rubs me the wrong way. But basically, I was in class the other day, and it's this class. It's called Rhetoric and the Body, and we talk about like a lot of societal issues in relation to the body. And we always analyze these different like academic writings. And this one writing that we had to discuss, it was like a rhetorical analysis of the movie Teeth, the horror movie Teeth. And then it was talking about how like women are portrayed in horror movies, and how some of them are portrayed as these like as like docile and these like helpless victims. But then in instances like Teeth or I Spit on Your Grave, you have these like powerful, strong female characters that are getting revenge, and they're almost like warrior women. So we were talking about that article in class. And I always participate in class, and I'm a talkative guy. I always chime in and say something. But since we were talking about horror movies, I was like talking the entire class. And then she was talking about symbolism and because that movie, it's about this, like the movie Teeth is about this girl, and her vagina is basically like cutting off people's penises. And she was talking about like the symbolism of that. I think there was like some old mythology where like some ancient civilization had this like some mythology where like a vagina had teeth or something. I don't know. But anyways, I initially thought of the first Slumber Party Massacre, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of like this movie Slumber Party Massacre. If you look at the cover, the drill is placed between his legs, and it's like a phallic symbol. And you have all these like women going against him, and once they cut off the drill, that's symbolizing like they're cutting off his manhood, and he loses all his power and stuff. And she thought that was like a good point. She's like, oh yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that's great symbolism. And then she looked it up, and she saw like the shower scene, or she saw some like nude images, and she's like, oh geez, like there's a lot of scantily clad women in this movie. I'm like, yeah, that was just kind of some obligatory nudity. Actually, this came out in the 80s, but it was female directed, and the writer was a woman as well, and she was actually like a very strong feminist. I'm like the director just added all that nudity in because at the time all the other slasher movies had that, and you kind of needed that to sell your movie and get distribution. And she's like, oh, and then she's like, she was looking it up, and she's like, oh, there's a Slumber Party Massacre from 2021. And I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot they did a remake. So yeah, my teacher just mentioned, like when I was talking about Slumber Party Massacre as like an example in class, she mentioned the new one, and I was like, you know what? I already did all the other ones. I should check out the new one. Maybe it sucks. Maybe it's good. I don't know. But you know what? I am very glad that my teacher put the idea in my head to check out this Slumber Party Massacre remake, because I was a pretty darn big fan of this. I thought it was a very solid slasher movie, a very solid horror movie, and a very solid remake. I was just like very pleased with this movie. I was like, oh my goodness! Like I didn't expect that much. It didn't get a theatrical release. It was like put out on the Sci-Fi Channel, which shouts out to the Sci-Fi Channel. They still like put out big horror properties that would never really get a remake or never really get a theatrical movie release. Like Sci-Fi holds it down for horror fans. They hold it down for older horror properties. So shouts out to Sci-Fi. Keep doing your thing. Yeah, so like, this movie, this isn't a movie that, Slumber Party Massacre, who would have thought this would get remade? But I'm glad they remade it, and it was a good time. But before I get, too deep into all my random thoughts and comments, I'm going to give you all a plot summary, and I'm going to be extremely brief because this movie goes in a lot of unexpected directions. There's a lot of twists and turns. So I really do not want to spoil anything in this movie, because I think it's worth watching and I want people to check it out. So I'm going to give a very, very brief plot summary. Okay, so the movie starts out and you have these girls at a slumber party. This is like a flashback sequence, but it's not set in the 80s like the original timeline of the first movie. It's set in the 90s, since this is like this came out in 2021, so for the timeline it makes sense that the flashback events happen in the 90s. So I believe it's like 1993. There's these girls at a slumber party and they're attacked by Russ Thorn. They're all killed except this one young woman survives. She gets like drilled in her hand, but she's able to, best the killer, and everyone assumes that he's dead because they never found a body. And then it flash forwards to present day, and that woman's daughter is getting ready to go on this little, like trip with her friends. It's like a, girls trip. It's like girls weekend or whatever. They're going on this little trip. They're gonna rent out a little house, have a beautiful time. And while they are, driving to their destination, they have some car troubles. Their car breaks down, so they have to rent out this crusty, old decrepit house that's in the town where the initial Russ Thorn murders took place back in the day. And once they're there, people start getting picked off and killed by Russ Thorn. So that is the basic plot summary without getting into any spoilers. Now I'm going to jump into some random comments, thoughts, ideas, all that. So one thing that I really liked about this movie is there were so many callbacks to the original and just the franchise in general. So, in the beginning of the movie, the main girl, Dana, she's, you know, packing her bag for her little road trip with her friends, and she's listening to the radio. I think it's actually supposed to be a podcast because they reference there's like a true crime podcast that talks about Russ Thorn. She's listening to a podcast, but it's like super reminiscent of in the first movie when the main girl in that, she's, you know, in a room and there's a radio broadcast talking about Russ Thorn. It's a like a nice little callback. I really enjoyed that. You get the original theme music from the first Slumber Party Massacre. That's great music. It's like sporadic. You only hear it a couple times, but I'm super glad that they included that. So in the movie, like the girls are staying at this little rented house, and across the lake from them, there's a group of guys that are also doing a little vacation, and one of the guys he finds the guitar from Slumber Party Massacre 2 in a closet, and I thought that was completely awesome. And at one point he actually fights Russ Thorn with the guitar from part 2, and that I was geeking out. I was like, oh my goodness, like this is this real life? This is awesome. This is fantastic. Another callback is Russ has a lot of the same iconic lines from the first movie. Some people might not like that, but I thought that was really, really fun. I was like, I know that line. I'm like, that's an iconic line. That's great. And you also, like, in every one of the Slumber Party Massacre movies, you have to have someone, you know, peeping through the window when there's, like, you know, a slumber party taking place. So there's 2 instances of that. There's one instance where, you know, the girls are dancing to music, and this one mechanic guy, he's like peeping through the window checking them out. And then the girls go to the boys' cabin, and the boys are they're all like shirtless, having this pillow fight, and the girls are like peeping through the window, and they're like, is this what guys really do at slumber parties? So I like that. You gotta have the peeping through the window scene at least once in any Slumber Party Massacre movie, so that was great. And I thought the actor who played Russ was fantastic. I think some people might think that he was a little bit over the top in his portrayal, but me personally, I thought he was so unhinged and crazy, and he would like cock his head and he had these crazy eyes. Some people might think that's over the top, but even the way he delivered his lines, it was perfect. It wasn't too try hard. It wasn't too over the top in my opinion, but he totally nailed that just unhinged, crazy vibe. I thought the actor who played Russ was great. He had the look. All his mannerisms were just creepy and crazy, and the way he delivered his lines was really good as well. So I really liked the new Russ Thorn actor. Jumping into another point, the kills in this movie were fantastic, and the body count was very high. This movie, there was like only one cutaway kill. You always got to, like, this movie was gory as heck. Even though for the most part most of the kills were done with the drill, there actually was a decent amount of variety with the kills, and it was extremely gory. Like, if people were getting drilled through the head, you would see it happening. There's this one instance where this one girl gets drilled through the neck, and you see it side view, like going in and out. It was fantastic, and most of it's practical. You know, nowadays they do use a little bit of CGI. Even if they're doing a practical effect, they touch it up with a little CGI. You know, that's par for the course nowadays. That's how it goes, because they kind of make it look a little cleaner, a little smoother. But like the practical effects, the gore effects in this, the kills themselves, the aftermath of the kills in this were fantastic. So I was I was very pleased. I was very happy with the kills. And then jumping into my last couple points here, the characters in this were extremely smart. And you know, I love slasher movies with smart characters. You know, I've seen so many slasher movies. Um, you know, I kind of know the tropes. So these young ladies, they weren't like ditzy. They weren't helpless. Like they were badass chicks, and they were like an equal match for the killer. They were going toe to toe. So for me personally, that really like heightened the stakes, and I was really invested. I was really engaged. I was like, you know, they were just going toe to toe the whole time, and it was like, I don't know, it was just like an epic showdown. So I really liked that the characters were really smart, and I really liked the story. I thought, you know, for a slasher movie especially, the story was really good. Like I said, this movie goes in a lot of unexpected directions. There's a lot of twists and turns. There's a lot of, you know, subverting of expectations. Like there were so many things that I did not expect, and the story really kept me on my toes. So yeah, I you know, for like, you wouldn't expect that much from this movie. It didn't get a theatrical release. It was put out by Sci-Fi. Like I said, I like Sci-Fi, but you know, it's like any movie that debuts on TV. You would initially think it's gonna be like inferior, but this was a good remake. This was a good it was just a good slasher movie. And like I said earlier, I was initially, you know, skeptical. Like I was initially on the fence about watching this because I thought, you know, a lot of movies nowadays, they do have, they are a little too heavy-handed with the social commentary. This, you know, it did have quite a bit of social commentary, and it was kind of a satirical take on a lot of tropes in the slasher genre. So there was a lot of social commentary, but for the most part, it wasn't too heavy-handed. There was a couple instances where it was a little bit in your face, but I can only remember like 2 instances where the social commentary was just totally in your face and kind of jarring. For the most part, it was subtle and it was smart, and it I don't know, it was kind of funny at times. Like this movie had some good comedy. Some of the comedy, like I said, it didn't really work for me, and some of the social commentary, like in a couple instances, was a little heavy-handed. But for the most part, they were pretty subtle, and yeah, it wasn't like super preachy. You know what I mean? So yeah, overall, I thought this was a fantastic movie, a great remake. I would absolutely, positively recommend it. If you're a fan of the Slumber Party Massacre franchise, I think this is a super solid remake, and I'm glad they made it. So yeah, 10 out of 10 would recommend. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Slumber Party Massacre 2021. So I'm gonna wrap things up here. Thank you all very much for watching, and peace out.